So this triangle represents, well, all the people working in a big company, let's say in the early 80s. And what happened then, that was with the Washington Consensus, that was an agreement that was made between World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and so the US financial authorities, they wanted to just to allow money to be spread worldwide, which means that shareholders could put their money anywhere in the world. And this has considerably changed the world of work, because from that moment on, the most important thing was to just increase profit from shares. And then in Japan, they were already busy with outsourcing to a large extent. And so that's how outsourcing penetrated very quickly in an exponential way into the whole world. And so ever since, it's a bit simplified, the whole story, but let's do it like that. So the big companies, they kept their core business. And then, of course, they did join with other business. They absorbed each other, and so they became bigger. And then you had some, under there had some production activities linked to the core business that did stay very close to the mother company. And then at the bottom, you have the maintenance and kitchen and guards and everything. So, and these things at the bottom, those are the things that were outsourced quite quickly. And sometimes you have the very specialized enterprises, and this is a big advantage of this outsourcing. You can have all competence in each industry all the time, so that makes it cheaper, but that makes it often also more competent. But very often also there are maintenance jobs which are very risky for health and safety and which are also outsourced. Now, what is the problem with that? That before that, when all the people were in the same big company, in our big triangle, you had very good, in these big companies, very good occupational health and occupational safety and industrial hygiene professionals and so on. While now, you have the best competence in top of our triangle, while the risks are at the bottom of our triangle. But those people are out of the original companies. And this is a major challenge for health and safety in the modern world of work. So depending upon the type of sector, so the surface of the different boxes in there are different. It can be very small at the bottom and very big at top and so on and so on. Just a kind of very simplified model to understand what is happening and what has happened ever since 1989 when the Washington deal, that's the deal, the Washington Consensus, that was the one with the invisible hand. Ever since the invisible hand is running the economics in the world, all to now International Monetary Fund and others are just coming step by step back from that big illusion. Some people became very rich, but and that was the goal probably, but other people became very poor in that world. So, but ever since we are more than ever before facing a dualistic world of occupational health and safety. With, at the left-hand side, you see well-developed skills and diplomas, stable working conditions, limited exposure to risks, high mental workload, very often, very stressful. But with career planning, those people have good living conditions and the living environment is well chosen. And they are very well represented by trade unions, and they have also good health surveillance, both inside and outside companies. While on the right-hand side, you have the other part of the labor world. It's two extremes. It's modeling, I said. It's not reality. Sometimes there are much more gray zones in it, but okay. Poor or no training, unskilled workers, changing working conditions and environment every now and then. They have to seek for a new employer again and again. High exposure to multiple and variable risks, high physical workload, no choice in jobs. They have to take whatever they can get. Poor living conditions and living environment also. Even when they're working abroad, sometimes they are housed in an incredible way, which is not really human. Often, unfortunately, despite the efforts of many trade unions all over Europe, no trade union representation, or they have not been in contact with it, and poor health surveillance. So when we spoke this morning about health promotion, that's something which is very useful, and employers can be convinced of if we are at the left-hand side, but at the right-hand side, it's health promotion is a kind of luxury for them, I'm afraid. Posted workers, you can have both at the left and at the right-hand side. We must not forget it. Posting is not a bad thing as such. It depends upon the conditions, but at the left-hand side, posting in general will not be a major problem. These people can speak for themselves. So, but for too many people in the world, not a majority, but too many people in the world that are very powerful, this is what workers is about. It's a kind of tool to make more money. Respect for human beings, none. Now, when we apply that to posted worker fraud, you will see that unbelievable things are possible. This is an example, thanks to Philippe for this image. So the number one, that's Belgium, that very small country there. So the execution of the contract is in Belgium. Workers were working in Belgium, so-called posted workers. The official contractor is an employer with a fictive posting address in London. And that company was led by, so it's a letterbox company led by Dutch people. And that Dutch company of the Netherlands is specialized in recruiting and posting people. It's a kind of go-between, like interim office or whatever you may call it. But in the Netherlands, interim office, it's very broad. So practices, for instance, which are forbidden in Belgium, are systematically allowed in the Netherlands, of gangmasters. And then, but they have to be registered nowadays. And then number four is a German sister company of the same Dutch leadership. And they are subcontractor for number two, for London, and that's in fact the only effective contractor. And the people who are working for that company are Polish workers, in reality working for number four, but with a labor contract with number two. That's what we can see nowadays. But most of all, those were not posted workers. They were living and working in Belgium since much more than 2 years, so they cannot be posted workers, because the maximum is 1 year plus 1 year extension is 2 years for posting. And that's how it goes nowadays. So in the newspaper sometimes we can hear about such practices. Here is called mafia practices in the meat sector in Ghent, one of our beautiful cities. And so these were well, the origin doesn't matter, but it were people from, Turkish people from Bulgaria, Turkish-speaking people from Bulgaria, and their victims were also Turkish-speaking people from Bulgaria, But there was a kind of mafia that was installed in Ghent, and they were not only in the meat sector, but also in prostitution and in house renting at extremely high prices, also for people illegally coming into the country and profiting of them, human trafficking and so on. So also drug trafficking. So they have a lot of businesses, and they corrupted sometimes some of their victims to say you can double your salary, net salary, because they did not contribute to Social Security, double net salary and a big German car, and so they were tempted, and that's how you get some complicity from people sometimes that before were your victims, and that's how it's worked. Happily, we can say that thanks to a very good collaboration between labor inspection and the judicial authorities, that almost all of these practices have been eradicated. But of course, it's never completely eradicated. Mafia people always start over and over again. So let's not make ourselves illusions. But it has asked, it required enormous efforts to just get it. So also the same was written in the best article I ever read in a newspaper on the same issue, and that was in the newspaper that normally is read only by employers and people and bank people and so on. So, but it was a wonderful explanation. It should be translated in all languages because it gives a very accurate description of what type of practices may happen today and with which consequences for also for health and safety of people, but of course for the social protection as well. Now this image is coming from a colleague from Portugal during the Belgian presidency of the EU with the Senior Labour Inspectors Committee, that's the Director Generals of all the labour inspection services dealing with us from European Union member states and the EFTA countries, European Free Trade Association countries, so they come together once every 6 months in the country that is chairing the European Union, and there is also a thematic day linked to that. And so the thematic day in Belgium in those days was on precarious working conditions, and so this was an example given by a Portuguese colleague. You can read it for yourself. I will not read it all. So you see there bogus independent workers, undeclared workers, immigrant workers, temporary workers. Some of these people are posted workers as well, but in a mixture, in a mess of all type of irregularities, you find the posted workers as well. And this is what happened in a subcontracting construction site in Portugal. Now, what is the problem regarding us of such constructions? That, of course, it's full of people who are in need of having a job, of gaining money, and who are often in a position of judicial insecurity. And so those people are ready to accept dangerous conditions. And if you accept unacceptable conditions, what can you do? Either you get crazy, or you say, oh, this is normal. You interiorize the distorted norms. You don't complain. When people are living in North Korea, of course, most people there will identify themselves with the regime over there, even if some things that are required from the people are really absurd. But otherwise, you get crazy. That's the choice you have. So also those people, they will interiorize the distorted norms and will say, okay, this is as it should be. And then, of course, you get the unconscious complicity, because they play the game as well. They are victims and are players at the same time in that game. And that's really dramatic. Where does it lead us to? To unfair competition. And if there is unfair competition, and they make profit, not the people who work there make profit, but some people behind the screens make profit. So you will have more enterprises that are non-OSH friendly. And then, of course, as a consequence, you will have more and more people in social need, or in judicial insecurity, and so on. And this is a vicious circle. That was, for instance, what was happening in the meat sector in Ghent. That's a vicious circle that is created in that way. And if you cannot stop those practices, including the practices of bogus posting and of insufficient protection of posted workers, so that is what will happen. This is a threat that we were explaining yesterday, that is really a threat to, in the long run, for protection of workers at the right-hand side of our dualistic model that I was showing before. So, what we know we can see, what we don't know we don't see. Was man weiß, man sieht in Deutsch. And this is an important principle. So, thanks to Limosa, Limosa is a bird, and birds don't know frontiers. So that's the name of the system in Belgium that was installed since quite some years. An obligation it was to notify any posting in Belgium before employment starts. Like every Belgian worker, domestic, also has to be notified to another system, Dimona in Belgium, before employment starts. When you're not in the Dimona database and someone sees that you are employed somewhere, it's black work. It's undeclared work, by definition. So, and this was also introduced. There were some difficulties with the European Commission at some point in time that said, well, it's against the free movement of workers and services and so on. But finally now in the enforcement directive, happily, this principle has been taken over. And so there are some discussions on some, let's call it details, not really details, but okay, but the big progress has been made in that respect. Of course, we know that failing OSH protection and failing social protection go hand in hand. Very often that has been illustrated by several speakers this morning. Now, for failing social protection, we have the very good IMI system to communicate, Internal Market Information System. It's housed in DG Growth. It's a bit unfortunate, but okay, that's it, not in DG Employment. It is necessary that it's in DG Growth for things like machinery that has to be sold everywhere and so on, and diploma certificates of people have to be validated. But now, in the same system and in a highly sophisticated way also, questioning can be done between labor inspectorates and other public authorities on the social protection of workers. Does that company really exist in your country? Has that person really, is social security contribution paid for that person? All those things can just be exchanged via IMI. We have another system that is not yet in the project, in the POOSH project, but I would recommend to take it in. That's the KSS system. That's the knowledge sharing site. Sorry, knowledge sharing site. This is in every member state. There is one coordinator and one deputy coordinator who are just the correspondent for the site of the OSH inspectorates of the European Union and EFTA countries. And so if an inspector has a question on the field, he can ask immediately to the coordinator. The coordinator sends it to the other country, and he gets answered quite quickly. Because why is it working so quickly? Because persons know each other. They come together every 1.5 years for a training session that we organize in Luxembourg. And so people know each other and feel highly committed to one another and try to help each other as much as they can and as soon as they can. And this is only for OSH. Sometimes, of course, there are other data which are exchanged as well, which are OSH related, but which are more in the social field. Also, the same site is used for exchanging warnings, for instance, if some practices were seen which are unsecure, unsafe, and which are quite uncommon. These are exchanged all over Europe immediately via the knowledge sharing site. Almost at the end, there's a proposal that I would suggest for amending the OSH Framework Directive on Occupational Health and Safety of Workers, the 89391. That is the basis for all the directives on health and safety at work. And that is a principle that should be introduced, and it might help us a lot. That national legislation that is relating to subcontracting, or to situations in which subcontracting can take place, should not allow for any of the actors' undertakings, sharing the same work site or not, in a subcontracting chain, to legally, contractually withdraw or be exempted from any possible co-responsibility in case an accident or any other adverse health effect occurs. This should incite employers to take their responsibility, as happily very many employers do, but take their responsibility instead of organizing the avoidance of accountability, which also very many employers do, unfortunately. And that's a big problem. And what do I mean by that? For instance, you have in top manufacturing industry that is building a new plant in a chemical industry, for instance. There is a new construction site, and there is a main contractor, company A, and that is outsourcing work to a company B, C, and D, which on their turn are outsourcing to company B1, C1, etc. This means that, for instance, the company B1, if that company is outsourcing a work to company B2, and puts in the contract, you know, you have to comply with all the rules regarding occupational health and safety, and then a serious accident happens. Well, a judge should not have to take into account the contractual arrangement that they should respect all the rules. No, if company B1 was able to avoid it, so they can be held accountable as well for the accident that occurred. Vice versa, if company B1 they provoke an accident and workers from company B are just injured, well, it could be that company B1 will be held accountable for that as well. But it could also be that the manufacturing industry, or the main contractor in that case, who they just outsource the work at a too low price, but they say you have to respect all the rules, but the price they pay is half of the price that you need to respect all the rules. So that in that case, any judge, anywhere, in any country in the European Union and EFTA countries, should be able to clearly identify, independently of any contractual arrangements, okay, you and you and you are co-responsible and you will pay for it. Like this morning, the case that was presented, maybe the Belgian company, I don't know, that was subcontracting to that Slovenian company, I'm sorry, should maybe be held accountable for what happened there as much as the Slovenian employer himself. So, and this is a principle that should be introduced and that could avoid a lot of disasters, because it will incite to just take measures instead of putting desks full of papers that are just for, in case of lawsuits, to say, no, 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 we've done all we could to avoid that something happened. And this is very often the case with posting of workers. So protecting posted workers, protecting workers under precarious conditions, combating dumping practices are things that all go together very well. This is the global image that I wanted to describe. It's puzzling. It's puzzling in terms of who is doing what do we need to change in the legislation, what good practice do we have to introduce. It can be anything, any piece of the puzzle can be anything, but this is what this project is all about, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together and see what's missing and what should be inserted in the puzzle. So thanks, I would say, for your attention and for puzzling together. Thank you.
I want to present you our legislation harmonized with European legislation about posted workers. Directive 96/71 to European Parliament and of the Council concerning the posting of workers in the framework of the provision of services. I translate in law number 344 per 2006 on the posting of workers in the framework of traditional provision and services. At 6th article, all employees posted to Romania under the framework of transnational provision services benefit from labor conditions established by Romanian law. At E, occupational health and safety, and F, protective measures applicable. Sorry, I need my glasses. To working conditions of pregnant women or those who have recycling, giving birth, and also for children and young people. Standards for the implementation of the methodological norm for implementing the provisions of the law number 319 per 2006 on occupational safety and health of workers at work contain provisions additional to those of the EU directives in force. At 83 article, introductive and general and training, and the article 90, workplace training shall also be provided too. Workers posted from an talking or enterprise and or establishment to another, and worker posted by a temporary work agency. Another articles at 116, the investigation of the events likely to cause temporary incapacity to work to foreign citizen is carried out by the Territorial Labor Inspectorate within whose jurisdiction to event occurred. Another articles, an accident at work occurred while providing services based on a contract, order, or other legal documents concluded by the enterprise or undertaking and or established of an employees, of an employer other than the one that has hurt the victims shall be recorded according to the terms set out in this regard in the documents signed and concluded. And the second, where the documents concluded does not provide clauses of this effect, their clauses are not enough covering the situation, or they are contrary to the provision of those methodological norms An accident works shall be recorded by the employer which, following its investigation, is found responsible for the accident. Section number 4, notification, investigation and recording of events produced outside the Romanian territory involving workers of Romanian employers who are fulfilling their state-related tasks of public interest or service duties. And 143 article, we have any event occurred in the territory of another country which involves Romanian workers posted or hired out by Romanian employers to foreign employers or user for carrying out work activities in the territory of the state shall immediately be notified by the Romanian employer to the diplomatic mission or the Romanian consular office in the country. And another part, Romanian employers that post or hire out workers to foreign employers or to user have the obligation to include the clauses concerning the notification of events in the content of international conventions and bilateral agreements concluded with foreign partners. Therefore, according to provisions of Article 144, when such events occur, the investigation team may include representatives of Romanian diplomatic mission or consular office by the country and the labor inspection. The investigation file of accidents suffered by insured Romanian workers under law number 346 will include documents drawn up by the investigation authorities of the country where the event took place and medical records from health care units which provide specialized care. All necessary expenses for their translation into Romanian will be incurred by the employer where the event took place. At the section number 5, notification and investigation of events produced in the territory of Romania, which involve foreign workers during their duties. The Romanian labor inspection notifies the diplomatic mission or consular of the country of origin of the injured person about any event occurred in the territory of Romania, which involves foreign nationals and the exercise of their duties. And another articles about this type of workers. The investigation of such events is carried out by the Territorial Labor Inspectorate, Labor Inspection, together with other competent authorities, agency, and also with representative of the foreign employer involved in the event. The investigation team may also include a representative of embassy or consulate of the country. A copy of the original investigation file shall be sent to the embassy or consulate of the country of origin of the victims. In EU, workers injured in Romania after Romanians' accession to the European Union, total was 61, of which 8 fatalities. And Romanian workers injured in the EU after its accession to the EU is total 480, of which 47 fatalities. Here we have a graphic. We represent 2 types of events. If you can see, go up to the Romanian workers which work in EU. And another graphic, economic sectors that recorded EU workers injured in Romania after the country's accession to EU. You can see the first place is construction of building, civil engineering and specialized construction activities. 8 in the trade sector, also 8 other manufacturing, 4 people manufacturing of the metallic products, 3 waste management, 3 for manufacturing of the wood and forestry, 3 the same land transport and transport via pipes, and 2 extraction of crude petroleum and natural gas. And another part, economic sector that recorded injured Romanian workers in the EU after the country's accession to EU. You can see 159 people's land transport and transport via pipes sector, 85 in construction of buildings, civil engineering and specialized construction activities, 42 labor-related services, 35 manufacturing of food products, 16 manufacturing of wood and forestry, 15 manufacturing of fabricated metal products, 12 in trade, and 9 storage supporting transport activities. Number of Romanian workers injured in EU after the country's accession to the EU, you can see. It's for temporary incapacity to work and fatality graphic. Number of Romanian workers injured in the EU after the country's accession to the EU. Permit me to not read because it's very clear on the sector. And now the law number 344 on the posting of workers in the framework of transnational provision of services. We have in the law the labor inspection is a public authority in charge with a liaison office which performs the exchange of information with the competitive authorities in the member of state of the European Union or the European Economic Area. Annually, it answers at approximately 270 requests of information, most of them from Belgium, France, and Italy. It formulates more than 10 requests. Government decision number 104 per 2007, regulation of specific procedure concerning the posting of workers within the transnational provision of services in the territory of Romania. Undertakings enterprise are required to submit notification on the posting of workers to the Territorial Labor Inspectorate in the jurisdiction of which the activity is to be performed at least 5 days prior to the start of activity of the posted workers in the territory of Romania, but not later than the first day of activity. Dynamics of workers posted in the transnational provision of services, you can see, in 2015 and 16. Number registered employees 4,013 in 2015. The number of EU workers 5,000. Number of non-EU workers only 248. Number of inspection carried out 107. no fines applied, 15. And in 2016, 5,423 number of registered employees, 10,000 no of UA workers, 434 number of non-EU workers in 2016. Number of inspections carried out 134, and no fines applied 21. Thank you for your attention. It's our building, labor inspection from Romania. Thank you.
Well, I'll try to give some information about our OSH legislation, but it's impossible, I think, to do it in 20 minutes. So to give one comprehensive information, so I'll choose some topics which I think it's interesting for a lot of you. Well, our legal base for the OSH is the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and it must be applied in all activities in which employees perform work for the employer. Of course, there are some exceptions, especially in those activities which are in conflict with the provisions of this act, such as in Croatian armed forces or interventions of policemen, firefighters, and so on and so on. A very important article is Article 54, which stipulated the equality between the domestic and foreign workers, and it's a prescribed obligation to employer to provide all the all things for the foreign workers as the domestic has. So foreign workers must fulfill all the requirements prescribed with this our act. Well, from the OSH inspector's point of view, I think that this Article 62 is also very important because it consists of all important rules or regulation in this one article. It stipulated that the employer must ensure the employee with risk assessment for the workplace, with instructions for safe working practices, with a document as evidence that the employee has been trained for work in a safe manner, and also with a document that employee fulfills the requirements to perform tasks with special working conditions. It's very important for the work in Croatia. I'll come back a little later to this. And at least records of the checks carried out on the work equipment, installations, work environment, and so on. Of course, there are often some exceptions. So if the work on this construction site or on the workplace scheduled to last no longer than 30 days, then it's not needed to be provided with these documents, but the documents must be available within a period specified by a competent inspector. I'll come back to this article, and I don't want to speak about risk assessment instructions. I think it's completely clear, but I'll try to point out about and say a few words about the evidence on training for the worker in a safe manner or in a safe working practices. That means that all workers, according to the European directive and also to our act on OSH, who perform any task must be trained to work in a safe manner for that task. So in theoretical and in a practical part. Proof of the conducted procedure is the written record. And this record must be undersigned by worker or specialist and employer. So now is the question, how can the foreign worker prove that he passed this training for work in a safe manner? We decided, and the inspector will accept, for all the foreign workers from the EU member states, that they are trained to work in a safe manner if they are trained in accordance with the valid regulations in a home member state, and that they have a proof about that. In that case, there is not need to be retrained to work in a safe manner in Croatia. But every worker must be checked the practical part of this training in the workplace in Croatia. This is very important, and in other way it could be penalized by inspector. Well, and what I want to say, I want to say also some words about these requirements to perform tasks with a special working condition. It's so something specific, I think, for Croatia, and most of EU countries haven't provisions about this. And I'm speaking on the ordinance on jobs with special working conditions. Here is the definition of our work with special working conditions. This is work for which the employee, besides the general requirements needed for concluding an employment contract, must fulfill the prescribed special requirements relating to age, gender, professional qualifications, what means adequate educational background or vocational training, and also to have the health or mental ability, which is determined by a specialist in occupational medicine. According to Article 36, employer shall not permit an employee who does not meet this mentioned criteria to perform work. It is also very strong fine in Croatia. Well, about a few words about this ordinance. As you can see, 56 jobs are regulated with this ordinance. For example, handling and driving of self-propelled machines like combine harvesters, graders, loaders, forklifts, also handling with cranes, handling with devices on planes for storage, I don't know, flammable or explosive liquids and gases, diving operations, firefighting, and so on. Also, very important to know that one of the work with special conditions is work at height of more than 3 meters. And installation testing, I also write, maintaining of electrical installations. Now I give some examples for these jobs. The first, for electricians, the specific requests are age of over 18 years, adequate educational background, what means secondary or vocational school, and adequate health status. Good eyesight, recognition of colors, sight in deep, and so on. Contraindications are this, what are written here, and adequate psychic ability. Proof for this is school certificate and also a health certificate issued by a specialist of occupational medicine. I also put information that every of these status, this health status must be revalidated in 48 months. For the work at high, the main request is in a health condition of a man. It's defined by, I don't know, a full list of contraindications. And the proof for ability to work at high is, of course, the health certificate, which must be revalidated in every 12 months. And the third example is handling and operating with cranes. The proof is a vocational certificate and health status. And you see also the information about the revalidation of it. Well, from my information I collect from my colleagues, the most of posted workers comes from Slovenia. On the second place are Austria, then comes Italy, Germany, Sweden, and I don't know who else. Why am I this mention? Because I will give you most of them who come to Croatia perform jobs like as a forklift operator or a crane operator. So in accordance to our regulation, to our ordinance on jobs with special conditions, for both of these jobs, the worker must pass the vocational training, which must be performed in one institution of adult education. And as I mentioned before also, for every kind of this job, the worker must fulfill the health ability or medical examination, and this certificate must be issued by a specialist of occupational medicine. Here you see that in Croatia proof is for this vocational ability, certificate of competence, and for health ability, medical certificate for both of these jobs. But where is the problem? First, I want to mention Slovenia. They haven't these requests, and they haven't a special school, vocational training or something like this as in Croatia. But they have a medical certificate and a specialist of occupational medicine when in Slovenia issue this medical certificate in accordance with the risk assessment, with the risks in risk assessment. And the second example is Austria. For the same jobs, they have so specific education, vocational training, but they have not foreseen medical examination for this. And when these workers come to Croatia, the question is open how to prove for the workers from Slovenia or from Austria this working or vocational ability and also the health ability. The second question is on which language. Because we are in Europe, so this is one state with a lot of nations, a lot of countries, a lot of rules. And what will labor inspector in Croatia, what he will want to see about the proof of expertise for these jobs? First of all, I will say that the worker must have a proof which is valid in the member state from where the worker comes. If he can perform the work with this proof in his home country or country of origin, then he can, with this kind of proof, perform the work also in Croatia. So for the forklift crane, just to mention, forklift or a crane operator from Slovenia is enough to have a so-called MPK certificate, which means Nacionalna poklicna klasifikacija, or National Classification of Occupations. And for those workers from Austria, they must be provided with a medical certificate issued by specialists of occupational medicine in member states from where they come from, or the only another solution is a medical examination in Croatia. The second question I mentioned was the language. According to our constitutional law, all the documents must be in Latinic letter and in Croatian language. But it means that the documents must be translated of a certified person, or it's another possibility that the original issuer of the document issued this original document in Croatian language. So if you want to avoid the certified translation. Of course, this is only a peak of the iceberg of the documents and all the provisions in our legislation. Everyone must care about the risk assessment, about the means of work, personal protective equipment, and so on, evacuation, about providing the first aid. And at the end, I want to mention, especially for construction site obligation to send a notice to Labor Inspectorate about the beginning of work on a workplace, especially on construction site. And there is also obligation to have a plan of work on construction site. And if 2 or more employers work on the same place, they have the main of them must appoint the coordinator for safety and health matters. For those who want to learn more or know more, here is the link to our Occupational Health and Safety Act. It's translated, and it's unofficial version, unofficial translated version, but the author is my Ministry of Labor and Pension System. So I think it's enough to learn, and it's like official. So that's all from me till now. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you to all 3 presenters. We heard here about another perspective, namely the legal framework, which is of high importance for this project. But we also heard about the importance of the face-to-face interaction in regard to the knowledge sharing site, right? So please, if you have any questions, comments.
Thank you very much. My name is Marko Tanasic. I work for the Slovenian Association of Free Trade Unions, and I also run one project in cooperation with the German, Croatian, and Bulgarian union confederations. Before the questions, I have actually a couple of questions with 2 pictures. I need to show you 2 pictures. It goes with the questions. As I said, we heard a couple times about working conditions. They push their limits, and they work more than 50 or 60 hours per week. But we haven't heard about their living conditions. And what do you think? What is this? Do you have any idea? I will answer. This is the
kitchen.
A part of the apartment of the Polish posted workers in Netherlands. Unfortunately, this is not isolated case. We had also such cases in Slovenia and all over Europe. And my question is, could we talk about occupational safety and healthy without talking about living conditions if they after the hard day and long working day go to back to the such living conditions and live there, sleep, eat what they eat. We don't know if they don't receive their money. As we said, as we heard, the wages delay for more weeks, and I'm not sure that we could expect safe work and improvement of the health of these workers. So could we, yeah, as well, I'm not sure that we do know what it is. Probably you don't have any idea. This is in Novo Mesto, the headquarters of our company who post workers to Germany. Actually, not all the house, but just that mailbox, this white one in the middle of the picture. This is the actually headquarters of the company. So we cannot probably talk about how to promote safe and healthy at the workplace if we have such companies, mailbox companies. This is my question. And I agree with Karel. We probably have to, all of us, this is the question for thinking for all of us, how to contribute to the puzzle that Karel represented before, how to contribute all of us to the promotion of the safe and healthy. Thank you.
This legal base of this, or is this legal or illegal work of this posting company? This is not my point of area of work. From the OSH field, I can say that we have an ordinance. We have over 50 ordinances in Croatia. One of them is for the ordinance on, just to translate, ordinance for safe workplace. And so if this house is comply with the ordinance, then it's okay. We don't care about other things. If not, we will stop the work in this in the area which is not in accordance to the provisions of the ordinance and our law. Very simple. Inspection acts in a very simple way.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of situations that we have discovered as well in our country, and it's typical for the total exploitation of people. It's just people want to make money of it, and you are into that vicious circle of the cheapest gets the job. And how can you get cheaper in the very end? You can do social fraud, and you can not take the necessary health and safety preventive precautions at the workplace, and also on the housing you can save a lot of money. And that's how they sometimes get the cheapest. That's what happens. That's what happens nowadays. And that's why my proposal would be that just whatever happens, that everyone in the subcontracting chain can be held accountable for what goes wrong. And as far as I'm concerned, that can go to housing as well. And of course, the problem is, even if you know as an inspection service, like with the Limosa system, who are the posted workers in your country, it are that many that you never have enough human resources in the inspection service to cover all, and that's the case everywhere. Mm-hmm. But the problem could to some extent be overcome independently of the fact that we need more human resources in all inspection services all over Europe, because they are shrinking right now, let's be clear, due to savings in state budgets. But so it could be overcome to some extent if everybody who is co-responsible for just coming to such situations can be held accountable, can be fined, and can be seriously fined. I think the fines in my country are quite high now. They were quite low in the past. They have been increased recently, and that could be helpful because it could discourage to just save money in that way by giving to a posted worker or to a foreign company such conditions. There is the responsibility of the foreign company, of course, but there is the responsibility also of the main contractor and the subcontractor who is directly contracting party for workers being housed in that way, but also even for the initial contracting party, be it a company or private person or institution or a governmental body or whatever.
Author of the law.
I will add that in this case, in this house, if the company has not a sign at the entrance, the labor inspectorate or the labor inspector will not enter, because it's not allowed to enter on a private property. Without sign, we consider that this is the private property. In that case, we will contact our colleagues from the customs, because this is the breach of another law, and it's a kind of illegal performing of an activity.
Carol actually almost implied that with his analysis and the model a little bit, but I wanted to know from all of you that it seems like there is, the regulation is in place and it's quite good and should protect the workers. But my question is, like, how easy or how difficult is it to implement such regulations in the countries of origin? And do you follow workers when they leave national borders, like especially in the case of Romania and Croatia? Are you able to, enforce the regulations and protect your workers outside the national borders?
But until today, for instance, if the persons pay social security in the home country, so the authenticity of the A1 form that should prove that the person, the posted workers, is paying social security, it cannot be controlled directly in the working country. So one can ask to the sending country, one can ask if the person is paying his social security there, but one cannot control it. So whatever answer is given, one can only accept it. And this is one of the problems, and we try to overcome that with better collaboration and direct bilateral agreements with other inspectorates. The bilateral agreements which have been recognized now in the enforcement directive. That has been a long discussion. At the beginning they were not endorsed in the original version of the enforcement directive, but now they are. There's not only the IMI exchange, that is remarkably under DG Growth, not under DG Employment, but there is also now the bilateral agreements which have been concluded before, like my country has several bilateral agreements with several countries all over Europe. Yeah, and it's but.
Yeah. Could we add another dimension to your model then, the transnational model? Because you talked about sharing accountability through the subcontracting chain, but then it should also go across the borders for it to be like really effective,
Yeah, with the enforcement directive, a good onset has been given, but Philippe, who had to leave already, but he could comment much more in detail on that. But with the enforcement directive, an onset has been given to just the fact that if infringements are being done in the working country, that it could lead quite much more easily than before to fines or whatever, or convictions in the sending country. So this is, we have made already one big step forward, and I know that the Belgian Commissioner, Marianne Thijssen, for Employment Day, she happens to be Belgian now, that she is really very much working on that and trying to just push to improve it as much as she can. But I can imagine that not all people in the Commission are at the same wavelength, for reasons we may only guess. Informed guess.
Okay. If not, then I would like to take Carl's metaphor for the conclusion about puzzles. We heard a lot of perspectives today, and we all hope that at the end of this project we will put as much pieces as possible together in the results of this project. And I would also like to thank all the presenters and for their presentations and the audience for your questions and comments and photos. I think we had a fruitful event today. Not to forget, I would also like to remind the presenters of today's conference to send me the longer abstracts of their presentations in order to create a booklet of conference proceedings that we'll have for the OSH Observatory. Now, I think Christina should have a last word. So please, Christina, can you conclude this event?
Thank you so much, Natasha, also for chairing this the whole day. Yes, what to say? I think we were really, really hard-working people these past 2 days. I'm really thankful to you all that you attended the meeting yesterday, the joint visit, and also the conference today. Especially thank you to all presenters that were presenting today and also yesterday. Most of our participants already left. Nevertheless, I'm glad that also people from outside the partnership came today and listened to our presentations, also the discussion. I would like to say that today we also had the opportunity to meet a colleague from Croatia that she's part of another project on posting of workers, fair posting. So we will be able to make some connection and maybe there will be some synergy between those two projects and we could work together. And also a colleague from the trade union from Slovenia came today, and I believe they also are part of, were part and still are part of projects on posting of workers, and we will also make, we have a sort of a established connection with them, but I think there should be and could be done even more in this field. So thank you so much and have a nice, pleasant afternoon, and we will send you information, we will keep you posted about what's going on, and I do hope you will have the energy and also attend some other events in the future that will be organized in as part of this project, POOSH. Just before I was talking to some participants from the organizations that were not included or were not so actively involved in our previous projects. So these are new connections now, and I'm really, really glad that this network will be spreading and on the national level and also on the transnational level. So yes, thank you so much again, and those that are leaving today or tomorrow, have a safe trip back. Our partners, representatives of associated institutions, and I do hope to see you soon. Bye. Thank you.